This is episode 43 of our Apologia Center podcast. And we've got a very special guest for you guys. I'm just going to bring him in, and then we're just going to jump into it. I don't think there's a need for much introductions because you guys know him pretty well, I think, most of you. Mr. Meme himself, Jon McCray. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing, bro?
Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah.
Today, I watched your Joe Rogan thing today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I like what you're doing there. That whole series you got going on with like what do they believe?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump into it because it's just gonna be a bunch of we're talking apologetics on YouTube.
Cool.
For a video like that, because the editing aside, because that takes time.
Yeah.
You put in a lot of research into stuff like that, dude.
Yeah.
So tell us. So like a video like that, I forgot how many minutes it was. Prep time, recording, editing, research. How much time do you spend on a video like that?
Man, this is good. Whenever I think about these numbers, I feel like I'm just an incompetent YouTuber because they take so much time for me. So like something like that, like I'm always drafting way ahead of time. So like with that Joe Rogan one, I started watching as many Joe Rogan videos as I could, trying to do research, trying to find what he said, then go back and like, even if I find clips, I try to go back and watch those in context, make sure I understand them right. And then I just keep a list, you know what I mean? So it's like, if I know I'm going to be doing a Joe Rogan one, then I'll start that. Like I've started this list like probably a couple months ago for this one. But typically I don't have that much time because I don't know, like the Andrew Tate ones and stuff I did like just before. That last Andrew Tate one I did took me like 2 weeks of work probably of just trying to.
Whoa. Okay. Sorry, guys. We just dropped that call. We're going to come back to that. So go ahead and share this video out as we get Jon back on. There you are.
Back. I don't know what happened.
It's technology, man.
Okay, yeah. So I was just saying, but it takes me a long time. So typically I'll spend at least a full week doing research on somebody. Usually around 2, but for the whole video, editing and everything too, that takes another couple days, and we getting the clips together, the right timing, that just takes a while. So, but you can usually get those videos done in about 1 to 2 weeks, typically. Yeah.
There you go. How'd you get started on YouTube, Jon?
Yeah, so that's kind of a long story. I'll condense it, but basically, so back in, gosh, this would have been around 2014, 15-ish, is when I went to go get surgery because I lost my hair randomly in my early 20s. And you got
a video on that. I want to mention that you have a video speaking about that. If folks don't know, let them go check that out.
Definitely, yeah. And so basically, though, I was out of work for a while because I had to get a cochlear implant, and you have to retrain your brain to learn how to hear again, and it takes a long time. So it took about a year before I could start hearing well again. And during that time, I was doing a lot of debates with atheists and stuff on Facebook. And so we were in these Facebook groups, and there was a guy that from Australia who really like enjoyed my debates, I guess, in the groups. And he's like, you should start a YouTube channel. And at that time, I was like, I didn't even really watch much YouTube. You know what I mean? I was like, I guess, like, I wasn't really going to. And he's like, I'm going to send you a camera. He's like, just give it a shot. And if you don't like it, you don't have to worry about it.
Wow.
So, yeah, he sent it to me from Australia. And I was like, all right. And I gave it a shot. And it just ended up kind of working out, I guess. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
We all need some kind of a push, I suppose, and some support. But that dude was like, I believe in you. Here's a camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was pretty cool, man. Like, he did it. And when I started, I was like, all these like atheist memes and stuff, like I wanted to respond to, the picture memes. And I was like, man, I just like, they're so irking because they have so much emotional weight, but like people, you don't really have time to unpack the logic. So I was like, I'm just gonna like, start kind of destroying these memes like a meme at a time. And I knew that those memes wouldn't be around forever. So I was like, memes are still kind of like cultural slogans and these ideas that pass around in culture. So I knew I'd eventually branch out into doing that. But I started by just responding to all atheist stuff for a while, and then I started moving into more culture stuff.
Um, when do you think that growth kind of took off in your channel?
Um, when I got around 50K subs, things started kind of picking up. But actually, this was also too, I think, around the same time as COVID. So COVID kind of helped because a lot of people were just watching YouTube, and that's when I went from like, I think I hit like 100K subs, and then not that much later, I hit like 200K. So it was just like kind of like a fast growth, and so that's when things like really picked up. But my first initial push was from David Wood when we did the Islamicize Me project. So yeah, that helped get me a few thousand subs. Like if I think I got, yeah.
Was that on your channel?
No, it was on his channel.
It was
Yeah.
okay. Because I know there was like I remember when I binged it, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm watching him, and then I'm like, dude, like, where's this episode? And I'm looking for it, and YouTube's like taking it down, and I can't find that episode.
Yeah.
And I had to find it somewhere else. But I know there was a couple of episodes, but yeah, you guys really kind of that pushed you guys into certain conversations. That was interesting. That was a risky project.
Yeah, it was. Like that's when I first met Wood, because this was like I think it was, I can't remember how much after Nabil passed away, and him and Nabil had plans to do this project, and so they were already planning it. And then I met Wood at a conference, and then he's like, I got some ideas. Oh wow, that's
Dude, sorry. Guys, I don't know what's going on. This is interesting. Bubbles popping up on this screen. That was not my screen. That was his screen. You got bubbles popping up on your screen.
I don't know. That's so weird. I accidentally did a thumbs up, and then it did a thumbs up emoji on my screen, which I didn't know that it does that. And I think maybe that's what's crashing it. I don't know. So I was trying not to do thumbs ups.
Wait, you have that on your end? Like you can comment thumbs up?
I just saw it. I know it was part of the new Apple update, but I thought it was only for FaceTime, so it must be built into the system somehow.
Oh man. Okay. So Apple's coming up with new stuff, right? In September. So everything's like glitchy, dude. Like my phone's glitchy, my computers are glitchy.
Same.
You know there's a new update that they're working on when that starts happening if you've been using Apple for a while.
Yep.
So okay, you met David Wood, and then you guys got into this project.
Yeah. So and he hit me up and he's like, I got an idea that we can work on, and he told me about it, and I'm like, I'm down. so we ended up doing it, and it was fun. We shot it in 2 trips, but we were shooting it as we were writing it, like too, which made it like we had to be like really kind of quick with everything. But it was fun. Like me, him, and Vocab all work really well together, and we all have like different kind of creativity.
Yeah.
So we're all just like writing different episodes and stuff, and we just did it, but it was a fun project.
Now you guys got a lot of pushback on that project. That's why I said it was risky. And you guys got pushback from like everyone, not just pushback from Christians, non-Christians. I want to couple that with another question I have for you.
Yeah.
For a channel like yours, you're getting your notifications must be off on your phone and stuff like that. That's what my guess would be, like from YouTube.
100%, yeah.
You're getting a lot of comments, and a lot of comments you're getting are probably, supporting and questions and love and all that stuff. How do you manage reading comments, responding to comments, and not just ignoring it altogether, because it can get like extremely toxic and vile?
Yeah. So most of my friends that are YouTubers, they don't even look at the comments, because it's very easy, I think, to get like super like emotionally involved in what's going on in the comment section, but what I do is I keep them on, like, and I'll read them like here and there, but I typically do like right when I publish a video, I'll try to read just like the first, I don't know, maybe hour or so worth, like, periodically or whatever. I'll go back and read, just to kind of get an idea of what people are saying, see if I missed anything big or messed something up or something. I get
Mm.
paranoid about getting stuff wrong. So I'm always like trying to make sure I get things as right as possible. So yeah, so I'll do that. And then I'll go back and like, I'll just glance at a few comments, like maybe that night, and then a little bit the next day. Like I'll just check in a few times, and then that's it. And then I kind of just let it go after that. But I'll just kind of glance in like wherever it's at. Like I won't go through all of them, but I'll just go in and glance. And yeah, so I do that. So I don't mind. Like you get kind of used to all the hate because you're going to get a lot of hate. It's just how it is, and you just get used to it, and it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's just like people say it, it's like whatever. And I try to correct people, like a few, if there's a comment that's going to be like a reoccurring comment where people keep kind of straw manning whatever you're saying or whatever, or if they're just mistakenly understand something, I'll correct a couple of those comments. But for the most part, I don't respond to that many comments. I'll just do it here and there if I think it'll be really fast and, you know what I mean, and might help other people to see if they have a similar objection.
Hmm. So you were doing, let's just say, evangelism, because what you were doing on Facebook was evangelism essentially,
Yeah.
which led you into doing YouTube. So I want to talk
Yeah.
about motivation here because I think it's very important. Someone asked me a question the other day on one of my streams and said, "Hey, is YouTube apologetics a really good side hustle to get into?" Exactly. And I don't know, he's probably listening to Tate or something like that, talking about side hustles and or Gary Vee or something like that. And my response was, dude, if you want a side hustle, like create a YouTube channel. I don't know, you're like unwrapping Barbie dolls or something like that, and like don't show your face, and you probably do well. There we go again. It's gonna be a long day. So we're just gonna go with it.
It wasn't an emoji this time.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just keep getting kicked out. So it might be on your end.
That is very interesting. You there? Unique thing is that I've never had this issue. It just drops someone who's calling. Yeah, I've never had this issue, so I don't even know how to interpret it.
Oh yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah, this call's being done. So someone said, "How you making this phone call?" It's Ecamm Live, man. It's like do this
Yeah.
every time we do interviews. So what was I gonna say? Okay, motivation. So you got into this because you were evangelizing. That's your heart. And then it's like turned into something.
Yeah.
Right. How do you manage, I suppose, your motives, controlling, like, that you come up with the title, clickbait stuff, you say certain things that are like controversial, but it's like, do I really believe that?
Right.
So your motivation and the way you deal with that, and then like being virtuous and honoring God, how do you manage that? Because I think it's easier for me to, and I'm being very, very frank and forthright here. It's much easier for me to manage that.
Yeah.
Because there is a machine that wants to be fed.
Right.
Right? Like the algorithm, especially when you have like a large channel like yours, like you come up with something, it's like, oh man, it's going to take me to the next step, right? Like, oh, we just hit this many followers or whatever, subscribers. It's going to take us here. But not doing that and saying, no, my first and foremost thing is to honor Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question because I've been in the YouTube sphere for a while, and I've seen a lot of apologists and a lot of Christians. They'll start off doing what they want to do, but eventually, like a lot of times, is they'll find out what works in the algorithm, and that could be like a lot of like say bashing, just like or just kind of like taking them super uncharitable positions towards everybody and trying to make people look bad. Framing everything as like we're good, they're bad. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And that's a temptation, I think, because that it can work in the algorithm. You know what I mean? If you just like, you're just uncharitable. For me, like it's important to me for me to have a clean conscience. You know what I mean? So I try to stay true to that, and I try to make sure that like I to the best I can, I want to honor God in what I'm doing, and I think about the consequences of whatever videos I put out. So like I don't want to be a net negative to the world, or just making
yeah.
people more enraged just to get them enraged, because people like to be mad, and it helps to get clicks and stuff. A lot of people like to just be upset at something, or just kind of demonize another side or something like that. But I don't necessarily want that, because I don't think that it's helpful. So the way I think about it is like, is this does this video really give glory to God, or am I looking more for glory for myself? And for me, it's like before I record every video, I'm praying the same prayers like over and over, and a lot of it is for God to get the glory and not me, because I know I have a tendency for an ego. You know what I mean? Where I can just get big headed and think that it's all about me, and really, I could easily forget, that it's not about me and my whatever, my presence, my success, whatever. Instead, it's about making sure that people can get the gospel, and that this is going to be a God honoring video that can just do positive, bring people into the world, or bring people into the into Christianity, and really reaching people. So for me, like I always try to, at least to the best of my ability that I believe I can, at least to try to stay focused on that. You know what I mean? And try to just check in with myself, and make sure that this is what I'm doing. It's God honoring. Because there's
Mm,
been videos in the past I've done where I didn't feel like they were really as God honoring, even though they were doing well. My biggest video actually ever, I had a video that was really big that I took down, because I just thought it wasn't congruent with what could actually help people in this world, rather than just adding to the fire that
mm.
everybody else is just kind of piling into. So
Do you have people around you, like mentors and people who just like straight up like call you out?
oh
Like, hey,
no, I call all them out. No, all my YouTube friends, all of them too. Like as soon as I feel like they're messing up the gospel, they always get a call from me, and they all know it too. Like all of them. So like it's not just one or two. Everybody I know on YouTube, if I feel like they're butchering the gospel, messing it up, I'm like, we're gonna talk about this, like
mm,
one way or
very
another.
good.
So it's like, yeah, so we'll talk. So I'm super annoying in that regard. I know I am, but I'm like, you guys, like for me, it's just like, at least we can have that conversation where it's like you can understand where I'm coming from, and after that, then that's on you, So, but I call everybody. That's one thing I'm constantly doing. So,
Yeah, that's hey, YouTube theology, not theology police, I would say, but
there it is. Apologetic police.
apologetics police. Um, how do you? So you've created a community. You've created a community, and some of that just because we're creators and we know it goes to Patreon or various other places, and you stay connected with those who are supporting your ministry. Um, how have you seen kind of a healthy way of creating that and maintaining that, where you're engaging those people who are actively involved? I mean, you got started because somebody said, "Hey, dude, here's a camera."
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like that. That's really cool. I mean, I know I'm looking at my studio and all the stuff I have. Like the computer I'm running this off of is donated by a friend, and
Yeah.
Ruslan donated me my mixer, and I got monitors donated by friends. Like a lot of the stuff was given to me by people who believe in me, and they were like, "Dude, we just want to encourage you go do this work."
Yeah.
But those again are very close friends. They're relational for me, at least it's been. But there's also people who are online as the community is growing. How have you kept that and then invested in that? So it's you want to give people something, you just don't want to take. Apart
Right.
from here's YouTube videos I'm creating.
Right. Yeah. No, I do the same. Like I'll try to hook people up with whatever I can, especially like creators and stuff. Like if I can help them out, like especially if I really agree with their vision and I believe in them too, I do the same stuff. You know what I mean? So especially if I've upgraded equipment or something like that, I'll just give it to whoever I
Yep.
believe really needs it and can benefit from it. and yeah, I just try to keep that going, because
What
if I,
about the community that are learning from you, right? Like, so this series, I don't know. This was my guess. So we haven't talked. I don't know about this. This series that you're doing. What do they believe?
yeah.
Was that something you came up with, or was that something that came out of your community of people saying like, "Hey, Jon, this would be a really cool thing for you to do"?
Oh no, that I came up with that.
Okay, you're just a
Yeah,
genius.
typically that's the way. Like because I don't spend enough time kind of reading comments, you know what I mean. And I'm kind of one of those people that um, I'm really introverted, so I tend to work best by myself in a lot of situations, like for creativity. Because when I'm with other people, sometimes it's hard for me to kind of balance out. Like I need to like go into my head to go think. So that's typically where a lot of ideas come from. But I'm trying to think if I'm sure I've gotten some ideas from some people. Like people will sometimes come and say, "Hey, cover this situation," and then I'll go look it up if I haven't, and then I'll go look it up and cover it. So stuff like that is where the audience is really helpful because I'm always looking for ideas too of like things that I think I can contribute to. So
So it's interesting that you said you're pretty introverted,
yeah,
because, right? It's like you're putting yourself out there,
I know.
and
Oh,
then some people might not think that. Like, hey,
they
no,
don't.
I don't believe Jon is introverted. But I've hung out with him. Like, I've been in a car with Jon, and he's
Yeah.
the most silent guy there.
Yes, here's how it goes for me. So even for the first year of doing YouTube, I felt super awkward in front of the camera, and any social interaction, I really do get drained quickly too. So like after this, I'm gonna be exhausted. I'm just going to be. But like that, I can usually kind of put myself into like I can prepare myself. So it's like I'll be like, okay, I know I'm gonna be doing something extroverted today, so I'm gonna just keep my energy kind of low, not do too much, and then give it all to that. And then afterwards, I plan my whole night where I know I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So that's typically how I
Yeah,
do it.
I really picked up on that by watching you when we were, I think it was a couple of occasions we went to see the Hebrew Israelites, and it was like, Jon,
Yeah.
you were just standing there in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, and until I want to engage, like that's the whole thing too. Is like, and I sometimes I'm like, man, is this abnormal? Like how much it takes out of me, just to kind of interact with people. So like David Wood, anybody that kind of knows that hangs out with me for a while, I always go get my own alone time a lot. You know what I mean? Because I need to go recharge. So I'll go just like kind of drift off. And Wood's funny. We never talked about it, but he's never pushed me to like do anything. If he just sees me kind of going off, he's probably like, oh, there he goes again. Weird. But yeah, I'll go try to go recharge because I spend a lot of time in my head trying to work through stuff. I'm always like writing videos, I feel like, in my head at any given moment too. I'm just always lived in my head. I've just always been that way. So yeah. So I try to work on it though. So I try to like
How much of this stuff did you have to learn, Jon, or did you already have a background in video editing and stuff like that, and script writing and all that stuff?
so not in video editing, but it was like music kind of. So I picked it up intuitively for video editing because I used to do music a lot, and so same kind of thing. So that wasn't too hard. When it comes to like I guess the stuff I talk about, I spent a lot of years like studying a lot of philosophy and apologetics, of course, and stuff like that. That's helped kind of prep me for it. And then um, yeah, and I guess I'm trying to think of what else. Like, I've always been a writer. I've always, even when I was in like third grade, I wrote my first novel, which I still have in my other office, by the way. But yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, I've always loved to write. I've written like novels and stuff a lot, and I've always been in just any kind of writing. I've always been able to. That's something I've always became somewhat natural to me, more so as writing. Yeah. So
Yeah. Um, Out of all your videos, what is your most favorite video that you've made?
uh, that's tough. Um, I don't know. I guess like it depends because I guess I'd say, well, yeah, it'd probably be one maybe like the Lisa Gunger video I did years ago. Um, Maybe because that one was, I felt like I was able to spend a lot of time unpacking some assumptions that I had to think through for a while that were preventing people from understanding the gospel message. And then I was able to kind of craft it in a way where it was able to, I think, communicate pretty well. But that was an old video too. That was like maybe 4 years ago or so. Yeah, but maybe that. I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I kind of just do a video and then I just move on in my head. I'm just like, so I don't really spend that much time thinking back to like videos. But I enjoy the most was probably doing the skits and stuff I did. I did a lot of skits, and those were probably the most fun for me because I got to do more creative kind of stuff with those. But
how many times a week do you post a video now?
right now, it's been the last few weeks. It's been one, but typically I do two. But I've been doing a lot of traveling for the last 3 months or so, so it's kind of cut me down about one a week. But yeah, but one or two, usually two, is usually I usually try to post Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So we'll connect that to this question.
Yeah.
You have to view whatever YouTube is, whether you're in the beginning stages, I think, or you're like fully into it, fully funded, and all that stuff, as a job. Because the question came in was, what's Jon's life like outside of YouTube?
That's a great question. So I rent out this office space that I'm in because it helps me separate from work and home. Because if not, I can just work nonstop. I just can. I feel like I can always have something to do, like researching, studying, thinking, coming up with ideas and thumbnails, and then there's all kinds of stuff on the business side too that you always have to take care of, like the emails and tax stuff and everything else. So there's always work to do, but that helps to have a distinction. And I tend to come in every morning to this office about 9 a.m. and then I usually leave about 6 p.m. So I do that. When I get home, I kind of have a rigid routine. When I get home, me and my family will eat, and then after that, we all go on a walk together. So we do that, and then after that, me and my wife will do our Bible study or do some sort of reading together, whether it's couple stuff or Bible study stuff. And then we'll watch something on TV for about a half hour to an hour or so, and then go to sleep. So that's Monday through Friday. So it's basically that's it. And then on the weekends,
And you got multiple kids, I should say.
Yes, 3 kids, 3 boys. Yeah, all young boys. So it's always chaos, always something to do. So home is never boring. So.
Yeah. That's good. This is a really good question that's come in. If this is full time and if YouTube shut down, what would you be doing?
That's a great question. So this is I've been full time now for the last couple of years. Maybe actually it was 2020 when I first went full time. Right before the pandemic. So I think it was like March. And it was stepping out on a limb, by the way. It was pretty tough, but made it work. But if YouTube shut down, I would go just work another job just to kind of keep the money coming in. But I'm really, this is something I haven't talked about publicly yet because we're still in the early stages, but I'm working on a film right now. So
you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Here's early because it's going to be a couple years too. But working on a film, I'd like to get into film probably going forward after YouTube, and then teaching. I might. I've contemplated being a pastor. I'm not sure if I'd be the best one though, but I'd like to just help out in the church teaching. Even if not, but I'll always be teaching to some extent. I believe, trying to help. In whatever ways. But so I'll do something, God willing. I'll do whatever I'm called to do.
Okay. I want to switch gears and go into apologetics conversations. We'll start with this one that just came in. Actually, I didn't come up with this one. If someone were to come up to Jon and offered him a full ride to any seminary or university to study, where would he go?
Nowhere.
You wouldn't go to. Okay, so tell us about that.
The reason why is so I spent a lot of years studying like philosophy. I love philosophy. I love theology. I love apologetics. I love all those too. But really now it's like what I've learned in the last few years is really just talking with a lot of people is how you're really going to grow the most. Like the academic stuff is great. You need it. Yeah. You know what I mean? But there comes a time where you need to switch into the lay person and try to understand and deal with what their issues are with Christianity or what they're wrestling with, those sorts of things. And so that's where I try to make sure I just try to have as many kind of conversations with people as possible to really understand. And so that way I can be more effective of a communicator, and trying to find what obstacles they have with the gospel and try to address those in videos and stuff. So I don't envision myself going to seminary, but who knows? I mean, maybe there might be a reason for it, but as of now, I don't.
So just to put the cards on the table, you don't have any biblical studies kind of background?
Nope. Sure. But it's kind of weird because it's like when you spend, it's almost like and I'm friends with so many scholars. This is why it's kind of funny. Like I'm spending so much time, like, because I can call, any of these apologists and theologians, and a lot of those people. Like I just saw Paul Copan the other day too, is a good friend of mine. So it's like, so if I need resources in them, I can call them too. And there's so many books out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you can always just keep reading and learning. And so the formal training is good, you know what I mean? You should kind of know, but a lot of it you can get from just reading a lot of books, I believe, at least.
Okay, so I have a different sort of background, right? Went to Bible college, seminary,
Cool. Good.
and there's an aspect of where you're like forced to study. Right? It's like, hey
Yeah.
man, I gotta crank out this paper on whatever divine hiddenness. So I gotta
Yeah.
read this, I gotta research this, I gotta put this out.
Yeah.
Where the discipline, it seems to me that it takes a lot more discipline to just do it yourself.
You're
Right?
right.
A lot of people finish school and then they won't pick up books.
You're
They
right.
won't read, they won't study. You continue to do this, right? Like you got introduced to philosophy and you're like, dude, I love this stuff. And then
Yeah.
so how do you manage that? Because you want to stay up to date in answering skeptics,
Yeah.
and reading up on the literature, and then being able to take that and communicate it in your videos and communicate it to people, which is again a form of teaching that you're doing. So like, I don't know, do you like wake up and you're like 8 to 10 a.m. It's like I
Yeah.
read my Bible and then I read for 2 hours and then I get to editing and recording and stuff.
Well, yeah. So I have reading time that I do every night. So I have it in my calendar where I just spend about 35 minutes reading. So it's not a ton.
Yeah.
But that's so during the weekend is where I get in a lot more reading. If there's something that I want to study that's kind of like nerdish and it might not be like the best thing for a video, like I'll study those things on the weekends. If it's just like even if it's just like Platonic objects and God's existence or whatever, like I'm probably never going to talk about this stuff, but I like to think about it. So those things.
Hey, it comes out in weird ways, man.
Yeah,
It does. It does. Like for
yeah.
me, the whole transgender conversation
Yeah.
is like philosophically so rooted in conversations about souls that
Yeah.
it goes over people's heads. They're not paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because that's why it's weird how many of those things you'll kind of reach back to without even thinking about it. You know what I mean? Because I've noticed that too in a lot of conversations. You take even the things that you've learned from logic. You know what I mean? Like you know how to think well. You can make distinctions and categories so you can process through information, and then that applies to all kinds of different things as well too. But I agree with you. It's it does seem like a lot of those stuff, a lot of those things that you don't think will have relevance end up having relevance in some way. Yeah, so I'll do that, and then but like during my my work hours too, I'm just doing research all the time. So I'm constantly reading, and I'm referencing back to like books constantly too. It's like, okay, I remember reading about this in this book. Let me go brush up on it. You know what I mean? Those sorts of things. So that's where so I feel like I'm reading so much throughout the day, but like I kind of read what I want, and I'll pick a book. Right now I'm reading through what's his name? Oh my gosh, it just slipped me. I can't remember his name. It's on the transgender issue, transgenderism in the church. Book is called Preston Sprinkle.
Preston Sprinkle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go. I'm reading through his book right now, and he has a philosophical background a little bit. It sounds like, at least. I'm not sure much about him. This is the first book of his I've read, but
Okay.
he's making distinctions and stuff that are helpful. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, he's a theologian.
Yeah, is he okay? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. He makes good
Yeah.
distinctions though, still too. So sounds like he has a philosophy background.
He's a sharp thinker. He's a sharp dude.
Very good. Yeah. So reading through his now, but I'm usually like pick one book at a time that I'm just like want to read through, straight through. And so I'll do that during my reading time and read about 35 minutes a night on that until I'm done, and then move on to the next one. So
how do you keep from stagnating? And this might be like both in regards to your personal growth, personal development, and then also like YouTube, because YouTube changes stuff up,
yeah.
right? It'd be like shorts were doing really good, maybe like, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, and I realized like they put the brakes on shorts, dude, like big time.
Yeah. They did.
And then like going, okay, this other thing, like it seems like they're really pushing podcasts, like video podcasts and stuff like that. And so both learning about it's a craft, right? Like you got to learn about how this stuff works, and not just YouTube, it's just social media,
Yeah.
as a medium of communication.
Yeah.
Not stagnating in that, saying, man, I'm there, like I got whatever 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 subscribers or followers or something like that. Because you want to be, I guess, genuine with people. You want to give people good stuff. I mean, the Bible tells us to, whatever we're doing, we're working onto the Lord. We want to give them high quality stuff, and then continue growing in that.
Yeah, good question. So I think whatever you're doing, you're always going to be a student. So I'm constantly always learning YouTube. You know what I mean? I'm watching other people's stuff and trying to understand what it is they're doing, that sort of thing. You're just always kind of picking up stuff. But I think for me, I think YouTube it's hard. It's the hardest thing in the world, and it's also simple. And what I mean by simple is like you just have to make videos that people enjoy watching. You know what I mean? And so you learn these little kind of things where it's like even structuring your video. Okay, if I keep my intro shorter, if I help people, I mean, people might be interested in this, they might not be interested in this. You start kind of learning those things over time, which really helps. But yeah, I try to keep up a little bit, but like sometimes I'm slow to switch over. Like when YouTube Shorts came out, I was like, man, do I really want to do these shorts? And so it's like sometimes I'm slower to switch over. Where somebody like Ruslan is like gonna try it right away. You know what I mean? He has tons of energy. He's the opposite of me. Like he's just like, and I'm just like, let's just think about this thing for a long time and then perfect it. And he's just like, let's just get it out. So yeah, so he's got a gift in his way, but yeah. So for me, I keep up with stuff, and and I'm always making little micro changes. You know what I mean, and paying attention to stuff. But it's hard to kind of think about everything all at once. So I just kind of try to. You develop instincts over a while for your audience, by the way. So it's like. After a while, you kind of develop instincts where you'll know kind of like, okay, the videos basically perform very similar to how I expect them to perform. You know what I mean? So when you're doing it for a long time, you start picking up those instincts, I think.
Yeah,
but
that's true. It's very unique the way. So I view what you do as apologetics.
Yeah.
Let me just make a distinction because I love Ruslan so much. I don't view what Ruslan does as apologetics.
Right.
So Ruslan has apologetics in there. I think Ruslan is a Christian responding to the world, right? Like if I'm looking at like what happened with something's a buzz in the world, I'll go to like Ruslan's channel and I'll be like, he's responded to something, stuff, right? Or I even get introduced to stuff through him that I'm just not paying attention to. But you do apologetics, in a different way than, say, like academic apologetics.
Yeah.
Say, Paul Copan. He's different with the way he does apologetics. The guy's a professor. He writes books. He gives lectures. You're bringing apologetics with this scholar sort of stuff, but also saying, here's what Joe Rogan said. Yeah. And let's interact with that. Right? Like, what do you call that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I have a name for it, but I didn't come up with it. But what do you call it?
I don't know, man. Like, I just the way I always think about it is like, I try to think about like when I'm doing videos. I'm like, okay, how can I help? If I was talking to this person, what could I say that would actually help them? So I'm thinking that way, and you have your logical brain that you really develop from apologetics and stuff like that. But sometimes that stuff, the way it's packaged can be too coarse or too direct, or a lot of cases it's not answering the problem that they have. And so I'm always trying to find ways where I feel like I try to connect to where they're at in culture, and then try to see if I can use the answers to try to morph them in where they can understand and be receptive to the answers. So for me, it's just about simplifying. I try to make everything as simple as I can, you know what I mean, and avoiding apologetic language or philosophical language like ontology and epistemology and all those kind of words, and just try to explain what those things are in a very practical way if I need. So that's kind of what I'm doing, but I don't have a name for it.
Paul Gould has written a book called Cultural Apologetics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And I that's my view of what you do is cultural apologetics, because you're able to take stuff happening in culture, and you do it very well. I've told people this before. I'll see something trending on Twitter, or I'll see like people talking about something. I think I mentioned this to you when we saw each other. And I'm like, dude, I gotta like, this is a vid. Like, I totally want to respond to this. And the first place I visit on YouTube is your channel. I go, wait, let me see if John's responding to this. And then I'll go there, and then if I see that you've made a video on it and you've commented on it, and I'd say, and this is not to make you have a bigger head, but I'm like 80% of the stuff that I would say, John said it, so I'm good with that. I'm gonna share that out. I'm not gonna spend like 15 hours making a video. John's done the work, and
yeah,
and because that leads me to the way the algorithm works, and sometimes you should just see like everyone responding to the same stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
And it kind of gets like annoying to a certain extent. You kind of go, okay, like, yeah, this dude did this, and then like this person, that person did it. Like, should I do it as well? Like, what am I gonna really bring to this?
Exactly. I think the same thing. I typically won't comment on something unless I believe I can add some value to the conversation that other people aren't necessarily saying. So I don't really have that much interest too. And this is probably a detriment to my channel, but I don't have interest in just covering something in the same way if people can get the same sort of thoughts or responses to it from somebody else's channel. Like if I don't feel like I can bring something different and unique to the table on it, then I typically don't do those videos, so whether that's true or not, I mean, that's for everybody else to judge, but that's the way I think about it in my head, at least. So
you got a pretty established channel. For, I would say, channels like mine, what would be your advice? I'm being a little selfish here. I'm thinking about myself, but because you're like, I can put out 2 videos, I'm good.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Research wise and stuff. And then sometimes I'm like, dude, I want to put out 2 videos a week, but the algorithm's going to hate me. And then it's not like, so it might not be noticeable or whatever like that. And so there's this desire, I guess, to put out constant content. And I've realized this from a lot of creators who are like constant stuff. And even recently I was watching Alan Parr, who was like, hey, I'm going to put the brakes on this stuff. We're at a good place, whatever, like 1 video a week and something like that.
Yeah.
Would you say, like grind, like that's time for grinding, and you just got to pump stuff out, and then when you get to a more comfortable place?
The way I look at it is there's different models that you can do. So say there's like, how do I say this in a way that doesn't give the wrong impression? Let's say there's a...
say it, we'll clean it up.
No, I was like, I think I can use a different analogy. But say you're a restaurant and in Hawaii or something like that. You have the tourist restaurants where it's like the people come in there, and they're and it's really kind of fast. People come in and out, and maybe it's not like the highest quality food, but the convenience is better, you know what I mean, or whatever. And then so like they're kind of turning a lot. And then there's, this might be too abstract of an analogy too, but the other one would be like, say it's just like where the locals go, where they're going to like take their time and really enjoy their meals or something like that. I don't know. That's kind of a bad analogy, but the way I guess what I'm trying to say is depends on what you want to do. I think Ruslan's personality, he's naturally gifted to take in a ton of new things and keep putting them out, and where me and Alan Parr, we try to spend a lot of time thinking about stuff before we publish it and try to go a lot deeper, Not to say Ruslan's not deep, but I think you kind of understand what I mean, is we'll spend a lot more time in the prep work than Ruslan would, I believe. That's why, so like he's extroverted, so he can just keep putting stuff out more and more. And so I think different personalities just kind of do it differently. So it's kind of just depends on what you want to be. And you could just put out stuff constantly no matter what. But I think that my view is that the people in the long run are going to prefer higher quality than they are going to be preferred things just getting out. And I could be completely wrong on that. That's just the way it seems to me, is like it makes more sense if you put everything you put out as quality. That's one way to get the same amount of views that you could do if you do less quality but more videos every day. You know what I mean? So it really depends on like what model you want, I think. But I think the algorithm just really just says, do people like this video? Yes or no? And then just adjust accordingly, so.
That's good. Yeah. So like I'm pretty extroverted as well. So like I love it when people call in. Like I wish I could just have people just calling in all the time and we would just talk. That's the thing. It's like I prefer. That's why I stream almost every day, and I prefer to stream every day
Yeah.
rather than create videos and kind of the stuff you're doing. But I've
Yeah.
also
And
learned from someone like Ruslan to be able to be like, I'm going to create this video and then I'm going to
yeah.
chop that section up and put it up as a separate video.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
works.
It does work. Yeah. And I think playing to your strengths in those ways, God-given strengths. Because like for me, there's no way I could do a live stream every day. You know what I mean? I don't do that many interviews or anything anyway because they're so draining for me. And they
Yeah.
take me a lot of time, especially if I have to prep for something, and just like speaking engagements and stuff. It takes me a long time, you know what I mean? For whatever reason. But yeah, so I think I think you should. I think people naturally probably should do that, and then find help in the areas. Like Ruslan has people that chops up his videos because he hates editing. You know what I mean? So he will not edit. Where I rather edit. You know what I mean? I like perfecting whatever I have and just try to keep making it better. And he's just like, no, on to the new. You know what I mean? I think so.
Next subject.
That's just for different personalities. Yeah.
Yeah. Two questions smushed together. How has doing this strengthened your faith?
Oh, that's a great question.
And then I'll come back to the second part of this.
Okay. Yeah. So this has been. Oh, I'm trying to think where I even want to start on this. There's two ways I can go on this question. So having this channel, when I first started it, I was doing a lot more apologetic stuff. And then I started switching over to more culture stuff. And then I started spending a ton more time studying and thinking about the gospel. And there was a event that kind of sparked this too, because I was teaching at Reasonable Faith in Denver, and a guy came in and he's like, can Christians, can somebody like Hitler still be saved or something like that? Can you still be a Christian and kill people? And then he's just like, well, where's the law start? And he was a Church of Christ guy, so he thought he had like the kind of rules. He's like, you have to have these rules in order to know you're saved. These, so he kind of came from a more legalistic version of the Church of Christ, I guess, too. But anyways, it helped me think through the gospel. And then I started studying the gospel more and more, thinking about it. And then going through all of the passages in my Bible, I wrote a W next to for if I thought it appeared to entail works as part of salvation, and an S by the things that were clearly salvation. And then I kept going through and trying to read these verses and make sense of them in context. Long story short, in doing this while teaching and talking about it on my channel, I came to just fall in love with the gospel message. Like I thought I understood it and internalized it before, but I really didn't, not nearly as much as I did in having this channel, which is why I'm talking about the gospel in as many videos as I can, because it was such a change for my in everything about my life. It changed everything in my life. And because of that, like, it really just helped me to be able to just find ways to try to package it and deliver it to other people. So it's been a huge blessing in my life personally, for my family, I feel like, and just like spiritually, like I miss spending time with God if I haven't, did it for a little bit or whatever. And it's like you miss it, and just thinking about the gospel and reflecting on passages and thinking about them is just such a beautiful thing. So having this channel has really helped me grow tremendously spiritually, I believe, in that way. So it's been great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what the statistics show. You teach, you learn more. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
The second part of the question would be, you mentioned you've been traveling and speaking a lot. Is that disconnected to or connected to your popularity on YouTube?
Oh yeah, it's connected. So I usually go, I get a lot of kind of requests to go speak at like either churches or conferences or events or whatever. And so, I've been doing more of those lately because I understand how introverted I am and how much I can just stay in my home, you know what I mean, and not push out. So I've been intentionally just taking on, like, seeing more people, trying to even like saying yes to this, which, not that nothing with you. It's like, you're my boy.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you don't say yes to a lot of interviews.
Yeah. Just doing like stuff like this is, it really does like tire me, and I can spend a lot of time just even, because I'm always utilizing all my time anyway. So anyways, long story short, I've been trying to do more speaking engagements and stuff like that as well. So that's part of it. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Jon, do you think all Christians should be engaged in apologetics?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think so, because apologetics is good and it has its limitations, in my opinion. So I think where it really helps is because it really does give you the mental fortitude. So if you're wrestling with things, you should wrestle with them both emotionally and intellectually, in my opinion. And so the apologetics really helps to kind of ground you in the intellectual aspect where you can actually think and interact with these things. Because it took me a long time, but like I was just fully convinced by like the resurrection and stuff. And then the more you think about these arguments and stuff, it helps in those times when you have emotional doubts. Because you'll have emotional. I mean, at least the way I'm wired. You know what I mean? I'll have doubts sometimes, and then being able to determine, is this an emotional doubt or an intellectual doubt? But then thinking back to running through the logic and stuff in your head, and then being like, oh yeah, this does make the most sense. You know what I mean? So having apologetics is good for that, and it's good for other people. So you can be able to give answers to people. You know what I mean? For the hope, obviously, the 1 Peter 3:15. But yeah, that way you can give people answers too, because there's going to be some people that need rational. They have a rational block to Christianity.
Yeah.
Other people have emotional ones, and you want to be prepared to be able to handle both.
Okay. So the questions come in that based on Jon's work on YouTube and in theology, culture, and apologetics, what is a substantial topic or subject where he has changed his mind?
Good question. Man, I feel like I've changed. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it depends on what we're talking about. So I guess theologically, I definitely lean more towards the free grace position now, 100%. Like after doing a lot of studying, and this is just for me, I think theologically speaking, studying a lot on the Calvinism, the Arminian debate, and all these different theologies. I think that free grace makes the most sense out of the scriptures to me. A lot of the objections to it, typically, I think, are a lot of straw men where people will say stuff that free grace people don't really hold. But also, too, I think that in context, I think the passages overall just make a lot more sense. Theology is tough, but I think that position took me a while to get there. And I just come to understand the freeness of God's grace and how it just doesn't make sense in my mind logically and everything else, where it doesn't make sense for us to be able to earn our salvation in any way. And if we have the imputed righteousness of Christ, it's his righteousness that saves us, not our own. So it's like, so where do your works play into that? They don't play into your salvation with imputed righteousness in my mind. And so that's the thing. We can go into more later too, but I think works are good for a lot of things, and they're good for rewards, but I don't believe that they're good for salvation. So that's one area, probably the one that was the biggest for me, internalizing the gospel message, was just going through this for about 2 years before I even landed on this, and just going through all these passages and spending time on them. You know what I mean? It's about 2 years that took, and talking with people about it, and having like private debates and stuff on it. And so so that's where I landed. So
there's a comment that came in about debates. I think it was like, have you done formal debates? I think it was like, have you done formal debates, and do you think you're a good debater? Something like that.
So formally, so I just on like Facebook, I did like, I think I had a debate with, who was it? I can't remember. Oh, actually, it was Cy 10 Brennan-Kate way back then. Mm-hmm. And I think it was on the Kalam, but we did it on Facebook. So it was like, but we set it up or whatever, that the people set it up for us or whatever. That was so many years ago now. But yeah, I haven't did any like formal in-person debates because I don't see it as congruent with what I'm doing in my ministry. I don't see it as a need, but man, do I love to debate. I annoy all my friends though instead, like my friends and family, but I love that. Me, even my best friends, both of them too, we're always debating issues with each other too. So I think it helps to keep you sharp in that way. So I see the functionality there, but I don't really see it as, a thing that I should be necessarily doing right now. So
that's nice.
Yeah.
Would you say that Christians should have a solid theological foundation before they engage in apologetics?
That's a good question. I think so. Because for me, it was the other way around. I think I had a much better grounding in apologetics than I did theology, and, and just kind of understanding the practicality of the gospel and stuff. So I think so. I think the theology is tough. Like to say that it's just like simple, where it's like, this is just the one theology and all the other ones, are illogical, I think is misheaded, because I can see how you can get to all the different positions. I really can. But I think that, yeah, you should have an awareness at least of, for me, it's like the theology around the gospel message. Like that's what's most important, because that's what we're trying to get people to understand. And that's the most important point for us and others. So for me, it's just like, if you can be able to understand the gospel message and the questions that pertain to it, then I think that that's your good footing right there. After that, I think you can, you can still study theology, but it's less significant on things like, say, I don't know, open theism or something, or God in time or whatever.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I would say, but before the theology, if you could say that, the most important thing people need to have down is a proper hermeneutical approach. Like they need to study the Bible well. They got to love the Word of God. They got to hold the Word of God to a high esteem, and then just be able to study it in accordance to all the cultural context and all that stuff, and let your theology rise from that.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people like have a lot of theological lingo and stuff like that, and systematic, whatever. They like randomly picked up a systematic theology book and start reading it, and then they'll just like repeat to you what the book says.
Right.
And I'm like, I know what the position is. I'm asking you to back it up by the text.
Yeah.
So,
completely.
yeah, it's very important, man. I think let your theology rise out of that. And then once you have that down, then I would say you venture into doing apologetics. And then philosophy will confuse you to death. If you don't have a good grounding, and I saw this in seminary, by the way, with my classmates who were there studying philosophy, and I had a bachelor's in biblical studies and I was studying philosophy. So philosophy was a brand new language to me, but some of these people didn't have the biblical background. And they would say stuff philosophically attractive, I would say. Yeah. But I was like, dude, that's like biblically insane.
Exactly.
I get it. I get the attraction. Just don't, and that was the thing. What they needed to do is actually say, wait, hang on. Like, I really need to commit to the Word of God. And then within your philosophical worldviews, they can be, diverse within some of these things.
Completely agree. And just to echo you on the hermeneutics, like if you have the first thing is like understanding scripture in context, because it's like understanding, read the first 5 verses, or read the verse, the 5 verses before, 5 verses after. What is it saying in context of the chapter? What's it saying in context of the book? And then what's it saying in context of scripture? That tends to be how I kind of go through that process when I'm trying to understand verses too, just on a very simple level. But yeah, having a decent hermeneutic, get a historical background Bible, probably too, so you can understand the cultural context, you know what I mean? That informs a lot of the ways that it's done. There's all kinds of different resources you can have, but whenever I'm studying a verse, I am studying that verse. I will spend weeks on verses sometimes, you know what I mean? Because I really want to try to understand it. I spend tons of time in First John, by the way. First John was one of those books where I spend tons of time because it just didn't seem to make sense on the face of it. I was like, what is this book saying? So
am I a Christian? Am I not a Christian?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, First John will have you feeling that way. Wait, am I so I'm a child of Satan? Wait, or am I a child of God? Wait, what? So you'll have those. And so First John was one that was like a lot of the verses I spent a ton of time going through, but yeah, just falling in love with that, the verses and stuff, and falling in love with God's word is a beautiful thing, man.
Should an apologist understand esoterics too? I have no idea what that means, but if you have a thought on that, you can.
What is the question?
Should an apologist understand esoterics too?
Esoterics.
Yeah. If you guys want to qualify that, then we'll take it. But yeah. What study Bible do you use, John?
Yeah, so my favorite Bible. So I use a few different ones, but my favorite Bible has been, it was actually my first. It's like when it's your first like actual Bible, like the one that you decided to go pick out. It was the historical commentary one by Craig Keener and John Walton, I think, did it. And so I love that one. I'm referencing back to it. But I also too study like in and that one's an NIV, which a lot of people don't like, and I get it. But also the ESV for the Archaeological Bible. which I like. But yeah, but my favorite translation as of late is the NASB. So, so I
That's
don't.
good. Yeah,
So
that's good. Yeah, I
yeah,
should. I'm gonna make a shameless plug here because somebody made a comment. He said, speaking about resources, Logos. So today's we had a stream last week with Logos, and today's the last day you can get that discount. By the way, folks. So go to logos.com/Apologia Center. All the info's there. It's in the description of our other videos. And my main study source right now is Logos. And you can have study Bibles in there. You can have extra commentaries. You can have all sorts of resources that you can build your own libraries for whatever your need is. And so it's really good. You can carry it around with you. If you're traveling and mobile, you want to have that on your laptop instead of hauling this stuff, right? Like all these books. And John knows what that's like. If you guys are used to John's normal background, you guys have seen his books. John, you have a twin brother.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you see John on the street, don't just automatically assume you're going to run to him and be like, dude, I love your videos. You know, it might be his brother. And he's like, well,
and that happens too. He'll always like text me and stuff about it.
That does happen.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, all the time. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, but it's what's bad is he's not a Christian, and so he's always kind of doing some wild stuff and always with different girls. And I was like, somebody's gonna think that it's like me with some other girl. You know, they're like, oh, he's cheating on his wife, and it's really my twin. I'm just waiting for that to happen.
But if I were him, I would just randomly take pictures with people and like just tell, yeah, man, like.
Yeah, let's get a picture, man.
God's given it, man. That's the way it works. By esoterics is meaning that religions that Western world formed around before Christianity or Islam took over. Egyptian paganism. You would say we should be aware of these things, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I understand the question right, I do spend a lot of time studying sociology and stuff too, trying to understand where the thought trends have come from, where they're going, those sorts of things too. I always try to pay attention to. That's one thing I do try hard to keep up on too, so I can be more effective to this generation and the coming generation. So,
I got a couple more questions, and then we're gonna let you go.
Yeah.
Favorite apologist. Apologists, maybe apologist with the. Now this is a bit. I know I'm setting this up for you a little bit because it's a bit different when you get to know the people.
Right? You're trying to get me to say Arthur, right?
No. I don't. Yeah.
I'm messing, guys.
Yeah. I don't have that big of a head. I'll tell you this. For me, it's difficult because there's been times where I've like read people's work, I read J.P. Moreland's book that like revolutionized my life, and then I ended up finding myself sitting in J.P. Moreland's class.
Which one?
Love Your God with All Your Mind. That's the book that
Yeah.
And but it's very, very different than when you meet the person and you have a relationship. Like you mentioned, Paul Copan.
Yeah.
Right. He's just a different sort of person, man. Like when I was in Armenia, I would send out my newsletters, and he would type up his prayers and send it back to me.
That's
and
awesome.
I was like, hey, if he's praying for me, I'm good. I'm doing something good here. But because then relationally you get close, you know kind of what even like their struggles are. Like, oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, I've been thinking about it for like 15 years or something.
Yeah.
But just like generally those, maybe not favorite would be like too celebrity-ish, but, and I'll couple this, theologian / apologists that have had the most impact on your life?
Yeah, great question. Definitely up there. So I tend to say 3 typically that have the most impact. First one, William Lane Craig. He's the GOAT. Even though it's like, of course, you don't agree with everything he says, but William Lane Craig really helped me to be able to parse through a lot of apologetic stuff. Because I mean philosophy stuff. Because I took philosophy of religion in college, and so and I took it twice because I loved it so much. But then, so that gave me the background to understand what he was saying and stuff, and then really like loving like a lot of his stuff, especially on like God and time and stuff like that, has been really good. Yeah, so he's definitely had one people that's had the most impact. One of them, also Tim Keller, the late Tim Keller. was a huge influence for me to start trying to parse out even in understanding culture and then different ways to package the gospel. The reason why, too, one of the reasons why I do the gospel and try to do it in every video is because he would be doing that in sermons. And so I started realizing it's possible. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so really helped, even though I disagree with him on stuff, too, you know, so always a disclaimer, try to punt, don't agree with them on everything. And my best friend, Joey, his name is Joey Fukumoto. He's been a huge impact on my thinking too, because he challenges me on everything. He's a very good thinker, thinks very, very well, and challenges me on everything. And so, like me and him, we debate stuff all the time, but it gives you the opportunity to help parse through stuff, you know. And so he's had a huge impact on my thinking as well. So those are I want to say my top three people who's really influenced my thinking the most. I'd say.
Did Joe go to Talbot?
Did he what?
Did he go to Talbot? School-wise? No. Okay.
No. He's kind of just
sounded very familiar.
Yeah. Well, he I used to teach at the Reasonable Faith, you know, in Denver and stuff. We taught at there together, so I don't know, but Reasonable Faith directors might know who he is. But yeah.
Just want to say that Ashley's in the chat and she called out your Tim Keller. She said he's going to say Tim Keller. I'd bet my job on it.
Yeah. Ash is the bomb. Ash is my assistant and friend. She's an awesome person. So good to see you here, Ash.
Yeah, she's amazing. Have you used the CSB Apologetics Bible, John?
I haven't. No. Oh yes, actually I have. Yes, I have that one. I haven't got too far into it, but I have it. And I've looked at it for a couple things. With apologetics, though, you know, after you've been in it for so long, you feel like you already know what people are going to say to most things, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of kind of brushing up on stuff, if anything, but I do have it.
I like this one a lot. What are some of the apologetics related challenges that you see coming in the future?
So it's a tough question, because if we mean strictly like academic apologetics, or do we mean cultural apologetics? So I'd say with culture, since I'm more kind of focused on culture, I think that we have a lot of issues with that. That's kind of really come from the last 5+ years, a little bit, is because of a lot of the algorithm, I want to say, is part of it. But a lot of the echo chamber stuff has really kind of made people really distort the gospel message, I think. So I think politics is a big threat to the gospel. Things around that, like even is I guess what I want to say is that people are really primed to being misled right now, I think, because of how the algorithm and stuff is. So you have people like, even the Andrew Tate situation, I know you see me cover that. And the Andrew Tate situation was discouraging for me, because people are not even checking anything with facts. And because of that, like, he's getting away with lying consistently. And then we have a lot of Christians and stuff just defending him because they like his message or whatever. But it's like, so we've easily can trade the truth for things that we like. The red pill community is similar, I think, too. Like, a lot of these things, there's like really bad messages, but because they appeal conservative-ish, then Christians are way more apt to accept them without even critically evaluating how these things fit in with the gospel message and with scripture and with, our Christian convictions, and so we give everybody passes because we agree with them politically, where you wouldn't do that for the other side, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of issues there, I think, where, and it creates like an unnecessary us versus them dynamic in some cases. People aren't able to see the nuance in different views at all. It's black or white. It's like, if you kind of agree with something that other side is saying, then you're one of them. You know what I mean? It's like they're not being able to, because of the algorithms, and I think just the way content has been going. Like, people have been so reactive. Each side has been so reactive to the other side that it's just created an issue. So I think that's one of the bigger things I think that's going to continue to develop. But I think it will eventually branch off of politics and go more into these other movements, like just for an example, like red pill. Even though red pill, I wouldn't say is a direct issue, but people, I think, are going to start branching off into these things that are non-political issues, are non-political circles that they're going to start getting engaged to, and then without even knowing it, betray the gospel message. Because but last thing I'll say about that real quick is, like, I when I see people like Andrew Tate be able to get away with flat out lying consistently, and everybody is buying it, then it makes sense why the Antichrist can come. because he doesn't even have to work that hard. People are so apt to just, when they like somebody, they don't even bother to fact check them. They don't bother. They don't even. I'm not even convinced that they care that he's telling the truth or not. You know what I mean? They just like him and they don't want to believe what's bad about him. And I think we have the same sort of conditions that can happen when the Antichrist comes. So that's where I think. Depending on your eschatology, of course, but but that's where I think like we're really prone to being deceived, and so that's what I think is a huge issue right now is Christians forgetting what Christianity is, where we're coming from, what are our Christian convictions, and then standing on that,
Yeah.
and not just picking dumb battles too, like just fighting people just because they're, you're like, oh, I'm anti-LGBTQ, which is unhelpful in a lot of cases, but they're just saying it just because it's not the right battle sometimes. It's just like, you're just going to yell this out there just to tick people off, the virtue signal. I'm like, no, we need to go and get our hands dirty and really try to meet people where they are and try to share the gospel message with them. You know what I mean? Anything else, that's why I don't like the partisan stuff a lot, because it can really distract from that. Yeah,
it's interesting. By the way, just in regards to the eschatology comment, the Bible does say that there are many antichrists in the world currently. So I see people who are rejecting Jesus and the ways of Jesus and the love of Jesus as antichrists anyways, especially those who are in leadership positions and leading others astray.
Right.
And so this is the spirit, you could say, of the Antichrist. And Christians just generally need to be prophetic with all that stuff. That is the reality of it.
Johnny's saying specifically who he's defining as the Antichrist are those who say that Jesus didn't come in the flesh, right? And so we have a lot of those and misleading people. That's where it is in 1 John, I believe. What is it, 1 John 2:19-ish? Somewhere right around there, I believe. Yeah. So, but yeah. I think that's a good point as well too. Is you don't want to be binary in how you think of Antichrist, But yeah,
correct. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to break that down. That again, that's not the purpose. The purpose of this, but it just bugs me. Even, and this will lead me into my other question. Even someone like a Jordan Peterson. I've been pretty critical of Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson. I really do. I love the stuff he says. I've learned a great deal from him.
Yeah.
But as a biblicist, as someone who loves the text of the Bible, when I hear Jordan Peterson talk about the text of the Bible, and when he psychoanalyzes the text and does all that stuff, and I go, just hang on, let's do that like 8 steps later. Let's study the text. And I've been doing these reaction videos to his Exodus study, and just I see that regularly coming up, and then some people just won't have it. It's like, you're criticizing Jordan Peterson. I'm like, yes, because he's wrong about the Bible. Like, what do you want me to say? I love the guy, but he's wrong about the Bible. So it's important, like even within our own circles and stuff like that. Yeah. Now
what do they actually believe on Peterson too? I already had the video done, but Peterson's views go so deep sometimes. Like I got a little paranoid.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you saw back then. When I did one video on him, he retweeted and said.
So that was gonna lead me to my next question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So the internet's a funny place, man.
Yeah.
Like you do something, and I remember when you did this video, and then I saw like, wait, John's been retweeted by Jordan Peterson. This is insane. Like, and then I was like, I wonder what's going on with his phone right now. Just like, I'm sure friends and stuff were like, dude, X, Y, and Z, but also it's just ringing off the hook because it's Jordan Peterson that tweeted that out. And then it seems like those conversations led you to sit down with his daughter.
And not necessarily.
Okay, so different.
Yeah,
tell us about it.
Yeah. So Peterson did like you said. He tweeted a few times. He tweeted like three times my video on his views of the Bible. So I was happy because I was like, hopefully I got his view right. I tried really hard to get people's views right. Like that's a paranoia of mine too. Is like don't want to mess that up. But then he tweeted another video. I think my next video on Joe Rogan, when Joe Rogan, the controversy went down with Joe Rogan saying the N-word. He retweeted that and said, "Very good job, A+." So he started following me on Twitter, and then I tweeted him back, and I was like, "Hey, I want to make sure I got your view right on something." Never heard back from him. so that was about the end of that. And then his daughter actually, Justin Briley from Unbelievable, reached out to me, and he said he thought I'd be a really good fit for a combo with her. And so he reached out to me, and then so me and her had 2 conversations after that.
So my question was actually leading to, like, how do you deal with that? Because that's like a different level of attention, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And then like it's not something necessarily you've been planning for, because on YouTube it could be, hey, there's like 1,000 people listening to you, and then all of a sudden it's like 500,000, and then you're invited to be on TV with, you know, X, Y, and Z person. Like that's a crazy kind of attention that comes your way, and then you want to keep your sanity and then your dignity, your values, and then maybe even at times say, like, people don't know, but at times you say no to really good opportunities.
Yeah. 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 Honestly, like, man, and yeah, hopefully I don't give the wrong impression when I say this, but I really still see people as just people, you know what I mean? And so like you can be a fan of their work and stuff like that, but
Correct.
it's kind of weird because of like, I mean, I remember too, even when I first met William Lane Craig the first time, he was a person that was like as closest to somebody that I was like, am I going to meet him? You know what I mean? Like that was kind of crazy. Because I've read his stuff for so many years, but like you get to know him and stuff, and everybody's just people, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I try not to like, you know, put too much hype into it, because at the end of the day, I keep thinking, I'm like, the position I'm in, I'm not like famous or anything, but it's like, even being in this position, I know that I'm just a regular person who just God, you know, put in this position for whatever reason. And so I just know all of them are the exact same way. You know what I mean? So it's like they're just blessed. But yeah, a lot of I guess attention. I didn't get too much attention. Like the Jordan Peterson thing, I think Ruslan was the first one to text me about it. Then I think somebody else did after that. But yeah, I mean, it was cool that he's following me. You know what I mean? But like, I was like, I'm not going to change what I do to cater to him, right? Like I was like, I'm still going to keep first things first thing. It's like always is like, I'm still going to give the gospel the same way. I've still been critical of a lot of stuff, even though, again, I appreciate what Jordan Peterson has done tremendously for getting people to be open to Christianity and stuff, right? Tremendously appreciate that. But I have to always still keep my loyalty first and foremost to Christ and the gospel message. You know what I mean? And so that's what's more important to me. But yeah, so it doesn't throw me off too much. Again, I'm just like I guess an introverted weirdo, so I'm not thinking that.
Well, I don't think that, John. I really don't think that. I think it's that you've spent time working on your character, and I think this is sort of the dangers of what I've seen with certain people. Like before I started doing YouTube, like there was character formation happening. I had people speaking into my life and correcting me and telling me, "Hey, don't do that. That's stupid. We don't want that out of you." And then me listening to them. And you work on your character and then your values and just like being a virtuous individual, where you go, no, like I'm not going to be swayed by that. Like if I sat down and had an interview with Andrew Tate, I'm not going to all of a sudden start liking him. And I'll throw this out there. I think the Candace Owens interview was bad. Okay, let me just put it that way. Like, and I think she sort of like changed, like catered to him and stuff like that. And you don't have to do that. You can still be bold. You can still be nice and conduct the interview and then say, hey man, but you said this, like that's messed up. Or you did this, that's really messed up.
Yeah.
But there's a virtue and a character that gets developed, I think, over the years. And then you see the outworking of that sitting across people that could potentially, because of the, I don't want to say fame, but they carry weight, let's just say.
Right,
it could sway individuals on how they interact with them.
No, yeah, I think so. And so for me, it's like I'm always grounding in what is it that I'm trying to do? What am I valuing? You know what I mean? Those sorts of things. And I understand, because I'm really big into a lot of personality stuff too, but different personality types have a much harder time with that. So I can understand from that perspective. But my view is that we should always tend a little bit away from our natural temperaments. So if you're a person who's very like passive and afraid of conflict, tend towards working to be more okay with conflict. You know what I mean? Say no if you have a hard time saying no. You know, learn to say no. And the other way, if you're an abrasive person who's just really like, you know, try to calm down a little bit, try to back off, try not to be so domineering. You know, turn away from your natural temperament. I think will go a long ways for a lot of people. But yeah, I think so too. Like, so for me, back to what you were saying, I do try to I've always kind of been, I think that that's part of how I'm a little bit wired, is to be able to go back to what I value. And sometimes like it is uncomfortable. Like even watching the other day, watching Ruslan on the whatever podcast, I that's a tough position to be in because they're making all these jokes and stuff. You don't want to come across as like the party killer and like the bad vibe, bad energy person, you know. But you also like, and you want to get a message across, and you trying to balance too, not laughing at like the dirty jokes and stuff like that that you might laugh to out of politeness in some
Yeah.
other context. You know what I mean? Which like because I can see myself sometimes messing up with that where I'm just trying to be polite and you laugh before you think about what was said. You know what I mean? Because you're just trying to be polite, you know? And so those type things, that there are tough situations like that for that you're going to have to be in, you know? And so trying to understand and plan those out in advance really helps, you know? But yeah, just different people react differently to things. But yeah, I agree. You have to be able to ground in your beliefs in some way, I think, or you will be just tossed all the way around. That's no fun place to be. You don't want to follow the whole crowd because then you've lost yourself, and then you're somewhere you never thought you know that you'd end up, and you could just be further away from your faith at that point.
Yeah. And so that just again leads me to say, spend quite a bit of time on your spiritual development, your spiritual formation, your character formation. And I'll plug in our interview next week. Next
Okay.
Thursday, we have Kyle Strobel coming on, and we're going to be talking about spiritual formation / a book recently that was written with him and John Coe on prayer, where prayer becomes real. Read it with our leadership team at our church. Phenomenal in regards to drawing close to God. But that effort needs to be put into place. I think a lot of us, especially I think within even Christianity, and I think this is partly why we've seen a lot of deconstruction, individuals that were very talented and gifted, but not solid when it comes to character or their faith, being put into, bands and X, Y, and Z, or even like ministry, they shouldn't have been there because
Right.
they didn't have that development. And then they came across very difficult things they had to deal with. Next
Yeah.
thing you know, they're deconstructing and walking away. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, because the work
Yeah.
hadn't been done. The foundation hadn't been laid.
Yeah. And to be clear, I definitely have my set of character flaws. You know what
We
I
all
mean?
do.
The things I'm always working on and stuff too. You know what I mean? But I always try to keep in step with the Spirit and keep prayer ahead of me too. You know what I mean? Because God knows what I can handle and what I can't handle. You know what I mean, to some degree. And so it's like I want to make sure that He's, I can honor Him throughout all of these different things. So I'm always praying. I'm like, if I'm gonna bring you shame, you know what I mean, Lord, like pull this away from me, you know what I mean, because I don't want to bring him shame, you know what I mean. And so like just kind of keeping in step with the Spirit on these things too as you grow and develop, because to be an influencer, like a Christian influencer or a Christian pastor, Christian anything, you're either going to get better or worse. You can either be more of a hypocrite or you're going to have to conform your character to these standards that you're shooting for, you know what I mean. And so you make a decision every day. So it's like those little decisions when you decide to do something else behind your back, behind closed doors, those do add up in your character in the long thing, and you can become more hypocritical, or you just have a choice every day. So being able to try to make that choice and just just keep in prayer and stay close to God and keep in step with the Spirit, and continue to grow and learn, and things kind of just help. A random passage, Galatians 5:16, is when Paul says, "Keep in step with the Spirit, and you won't gratify the desires of the flesh." And what I loved about that verse was he contrasted, like what he's saying there. He doesn't show us like you're fighting everything all the time, but you're staying close with the Spirit. You're keeping in step with the Spirit and keeping your mind on the gospel and God's word. And then these other things kind of stop. You stop gratifying the desires of the flesh so much. I mean, I know that's how it was in my life, and so the Spirit does work through us. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to give them room to work.
Amen to that. And regardless where you are in life, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It really
Yeah.
doesn't matter, because some people sit there and they go, well, when I achieve that and when I do that and when this happens, then I'll work on that. It's like, no. There's
Yeah.
a lot of preparation that happens before I think God even allows you. And I'll put it in this context. YouTube can be very discouraging. Anybody that I know and I mean this way, you spend a lot of time, especially in the early stages, and then you like put out a video and like 10 people watch.
You're right.
You're like, man, like I just spent 8 to 10 hours on that video, and 10 people have watched it. And I got a guy at our church who's a fellow elder with me, and I shared something like that with him. There was a video that did like semi well, and I told him the number. And then he was like, and I was like, I said only before that. I said it only got this many views. And
Yeah.
he's like, dude, that's hundreds of people.
Exactly.
And
People
he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, imagine those people like sitting in a room together. And I was just like, oh, dude, like, and
Yeah.
the discouraging stuff could be there, but the preparation. And so it becomes, to me, is if God thinks you're ready for something, he's going to bring it about. He's going to allow for that. And then it's on you on how you're going to represent him and how you're going to portray him and be a good ambassador, as the Bible tells us to be.
That's right. 100. I agree with that too, because there's some situations that I haven't had opportunities to do certain things, but God knows. You know what I mean? The way I keep thinking about it is like, God knows. Maybe I'm not equipped enough for that sort of situation. Somebody else is. And so that's why whenever I'm looking at like number of subs and all that stuff, it really doesn't. In my mind, it's like it doesn't really matter that much, because God will. You have to be good stewards with what God gave you. You know what I mean? And that's it. You know what I mean? It's like whether it grows or not, just be a good steward with what God gave you. And it reminds me of on 1 Peter 4, where he talks about just loving. I think he's talking about the leaders there, if I remember right. He talks about loving the people that God's entrusted you with, and not holding things above them. You know what I mean? But working with them because you love them. You know what I mean? And so that's the way I look at it. It's like whatever we got, let's just try to be good stewards with it. So.
Yeah, and again, because we spend so much time, I guess this is advice just folks who are watching or listening to this. We spend so much of our time on YouTube and Instagram and posting and stuff like that. You guys, there's people around you, like in reaching distance, that you can call up and say, hey, let's grab coffee together and invest an hour into that person's life. And watch what God does in their lives. Like, don't ever disconnect from your local church community, from your local community, and the way God's going to use you in those places. Like, that's
and go into those, like, because I've been in like a couple churches, because I was a convert, so I didn't grow up in the church or anything. So I've only been to like a few churches in my life, but I remember like sometimes you're just like, man, you start seeing things where like this church is bad because of these reasons, or I don't want to stay here. But I think like a lot, when we have that mindset, we have that kind of consumer mindset rather than a mindset where we can actually help. Like, how can we help make this a better place? You know what I mean? For people, you know what I mean? And then so like, what can we contribute to fix the problem, rather than us just like pulling away because we see a problem, And so I think a lot of people get turned off at churches, and you're going to disagree with something at whatever church you join, but what can we do to try to help? We need more solutions sometimes instead of, our natural tendency, all of us, is just to kind of complain,
Amen to that. Hey, I think that's a pretty good spot for us to stop. Folks, I want to thank you guys. Jon, I want to thank you, man, for taking the time out of your day to share your thoughts with us and how God's been using you, man. Just know there's plenty of people. I know that, you see the numbers and I know what it looks like to look at analytics, but there's plenty of people that are very blessed by the work you're doing, man. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for having me, man, and glory to God. So appreciate you, man.
To that. Folks, thank you guys so much. Blessings to you. It's Friday, so I will see you guys on Monday when we do our live Q&A. Take care, and God bless you.